Dear friends, let's start.
Yeah.
Let me share the proposed agenda of today. Okay. So the proposed agenda is from dear Angel Bravo. We are planning to hear a presentation regarding the recent UBI discussions in Spain and also the related news. This was agenda item 2. And agenda item 3 is our dear friends Sheila and Tony, Sheila Reger and Tony Pickard will make a short presentation about the recent UBI discussions in Canada, and also they will inform us regarding related news. Fourth agenda item is, it's a proposal, an international collaboration mechanism proposal. I would like to start a discussion, especially from the activism point of view. Fourth one is from our dear friend Peter Brake. He would like to tell about the news and the developments regarding the illustration project. I guess they developed it within the email group, so it may be very interesting because they finalized it, I guess. And of course, we can hear news from working groups and news from UBI advocates and UBI networks. Dear friends, any comments or any modification requests regarding the agenda or any additional issues you would like to cover? So we can proceed like this then. I couldn't, let me, where I can check. Okay, here are the participants. Okay, so we are all happy with the agenda of today. So we will continue with our dear friend, Angel Bravo from Spain. Dear Angel, you are here, I guess.
Yes, I'm here.
And let me mute our friends, including me, so that Angel, you can unmute yourself and we will be listening to you.
Okay. What follows is a brief summary of UBI-related events that happened in Spain in the last 4 months, let's say. In the month of April this year, several English-speaking newspapers published some information telling the Spanish government was about to approve a UBI. No one knows where they got such a piece of news. It is true that an economist and former deputy of Ciudadanos, a center-right-wing political party in Spain, Tony Roldán, wrote an article in the well-known newspaper El País defending the necessity and possibility of giving 1,000 euros emergency UBI to all Spaniards during 3 months. That article had a considerable influence in the political and social circles and found an echo in the hearts of many people. The article gave rise to a lot of discussions and new articles about the urgency of an unconditional basic income. Maybe all these facts were the source of the articles in the English-speaking newspapers talking about the imminence of a UBI in Spain. Apart from these discussions in the media and between the politicians, the social movements were proposing the UBI too. The Spanish UBI networks, Red Renta Básica, and many UBI organizations like the Andalusian Association for UBI, Humanists for UBI, Marea Básica, etc., published a manifesto asking for a 9 months UBI until the end of this year and suggesting the possibility of resuming it next year keeping in mind that the economic crisis will continue long after the pandemic finishes. At the end of March this year, a lot of grassroots organizations launched an emergency plan calling for a quarantine UBI during the state of alarm. Last May, a survey into the introduction of a UBI was conducted, and it revealed that 56% of Spaniards were in favor of it. Moreover, between those who earn less than 1,000 a month, 67% were pro-UBI. Recently, in the beginning of May, the Spanish Parliament decided to put in motion the so-called Commission of Social and Economic Reconstruction, whose aim was to study the measures to implement in order to reconstruct the economy and the society after the pandemic finishes. Several experts in different areas were called upon to give advice on how to overcome the crisis. One of them was Daniel Raventós, a Barcelona University's economics professor, considered the person who knows the most about UBI in Spain. He spoke about the necessity of a UBI as a means to achieve material freedom, which is the foundation for existential liberty. In addition to this, Raventós confirmed the affordability of the UBI and warned against the threat to liberty posed by the influence of big capitals on the country's economic policies. It is clear that the Spanish politicians didn't pay any attention to what Raventós said, because their plans to revitalize the economy only consider the possibility of minimum and means-tested subsidies. Thus, the Spanish government approved, at the end of May, a guaranteed minimum income scheme for vulnerable families, which is absolutely insufficient, not only in amount, but in people covered by it too. Because of its difficulty to fulfill requisites, 80% of the population who needs this guaranteed minimum income will not receive it, particularly the young people who cannot make plans for their future due to the instability of labor market and the life's uncertainty they have to face. And finally, a question. This guaranteed minimum income can be a step towards UBI in Spain? Although this subsidy will not be removed when its beneficiaries find a job, and even if it is permanent for the whole life while existing the same economic conditions, the Spanish government and most politicians clearly don't intend to establish an unconditional basic income for the moment. The party Podemos, which included UBI in its 2014 European electoral program, removed it after the elections, arguing that the Spanish society was not prepared to accept the UBI. At present, only two small political parties proposed the UBI in their political manifestos, the Humanist Party and the Ecological Party ECO. Therefore, my conclusion is that there is still a long way to UBI in Spain unless civil society strongly demand for it. And this is just the goal of most grassroots organizations like mine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Angel. Dear friends, who would like to contribute or ask questions to our dear friend Angel? Guy, I see your hand. Please unmute yourself. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. I agree with everything you've just said. And as you know, I think I've written some articles in El País attacking the government's proposals. You have actually been generous to what they've introduced. The minister responsible boasted that what they've done is the opposite of a basic income, and it is. And what's so stupid about it is it bases the entitlement on people's income last year on a household basis, not current year, so that the income they held last year before the pandemic is used as the criterion for determining eligibility for this new IMV, the minimum ingreso vital. And it really is a stupid, regressive sort of scheme that will fail, And Danny has been absolutely right. I've communicated a lot with Danny during this period, and we're extremely frustrated, and all of us are annoyed by people starting to talk about basic income as if it's coming in Spain. I've had a lot of journalists talking to me and asking me, are you supporting the basic income in Spain? And I'm saying it's no such thing, and you're absolutely right. So I just wanted to support what you just said.
Thank you, Guy. Yeah, there was a lot of publicity about UBI in Spain. I don't understand why, because this was confusion. I think was intentionally published to confuse the public opinion.
Yep, I think so.
Any other friends who would like to contribute? I cannot. Oh, Eduardo, please. Please unmute yourself, Eduardo.
Good morning. So nice to see you, so many friends there. And well, let me just tell you, some of you already know. Last week, it was announced that President Jair Bolsonaro got the COVID-19. So he needs to be at least 2 weeks at the Palace of Alvorada, the palace where he lives, different from the Palace of the Planalto where he works. And so he must be isolated. And so I decided to send to him a book that all of you know well, Utopia of Thomas More, no? And for him to perhaps to think about, because he is an enthusiast of distributing arms to the Brazilian people. There has been an increase, in the number of people who are now having arms as a way to diminish criminality in Brazil. But so you all know the lessons of Thomas More. So I decided to give him as a president, and the mail will be arriving today at the Palace of Alvorada. So let us see his reaction, if he will have any reaction. But anyway, I continue to argue to everyone. But I have also some news. I have just received a call from deputy people's representative of the Chamber of Deputies, João Campos. He's a young member of the Brazilian Socialist Party, and he is the president of the new parliamentary front in favor of a citizen's basic income. And he just gave me the information that, well, there are 513 federal deputies, members of the Chamber of Deputies, and 81 senators. Of all of them, already 211 have signed to be members of the parliamentary front in the defense of a basic income. So that's a very good news. And there are several projects of law that will be unified, and João Campos just invited me to be the president of honor of this parliamentary front because of being the author of the law that will institute step by step the citizens' basic income in Brazil. So, he said that next Tuesday, July 21, at 10 o'clock, from 10 to noon, there will be the installation, the inauguration of this parliamentary front in favor of the basic income towards the universal basic income. So he invited me to be at this meeting, and there are several other details, but this is the good news that I would like to give you. So Ali Mutru, that's the brief information that I would like to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you for your contributions. Barb, dear Barb.
Hi, yeah. Hi, everyone. And thank you so much, Angel, for that. It really clarifies the situation in Spain. I just had a question, which is that, do you think that the Spanish government would have done even this if there had not been a movement for basic income in Spain? As bad, you know, I know the problems with it, but it's sort of my theory, like in the UK, that even though, again, we didn't get an emergency basic income, but that the government was pushed to include more people in the money they were giving out, you know, because there was such a strong basic income movement here. Does that apply in Spain, do you think, Uncle?
The Spanish government plans will reach more or less 2 million people. This is what they have said, but people at risk of poverty are more than 10 millions in Spain. So most of people needed of this minimum income will not receive it. So for most of us, it's absolutely insufficient, this subsidy. No? Absolutely insufficient. And for the moment, they don't plan to reach more people because of the budget, the lack of budget, unless Europe help us.
Right, I understand that, and I know it's very disappointing, but I'm just wondering if they would have not done it at all if there had been no movement for basic income. Do you understand? It's like if there hadn't been a movement for basic income, would they even have offered this?
I don't understand what you say.
Okay, what I'm trying to say is that our government in the UK was pushed to offer more than they would have done if there had been no basic income movement.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering if it's the same in Spain, you think, or is it just that they came up with this?
There are a lot of social grassroots organizations that are mobilized fighting for the UBI, but social organizations are not enough. We need a lot of people behind this proposal. No, so unless a lot of people will not push this proposal, I think the Spanish government plans will follow like this, like now.
Okay, and so then the follow-up is when, what can we do to help?
Yeah, we need help of a lot of people. No, now we are trying to explain people, to make people aware about the necessity of a UBI, but it's not easy. Our task, because we don't have the media, we don't have publicity through the media, no. So it's a difficult task for us, no, to reach more people, no.
Okay, well, if you have a petition or anything that we can help boost with our social media, then please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barb. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barb. I guess Paul would like to contribute. You, Paul Harnett.
Yeah, thanks very much, Angel. You quite rightly said that it depends on pressure from below, and I'm just wondering what's going on with Podemos, because I would have imagined that many of their supporters would support a basic income and would be angry with them to then move away from a basic income. So is this causing a problem for Podemos, or what's the situation there?
Inside Podemos, there are a lot of activists, of people who are in favor of UBI. No, in fact, UBI was the most voted proposal in the last Podemos Congress, but those who are in front of Podemos didn't want to include UBI in the last elections manifesto. So even if there are a lot of people inside Podemos who are in favor of UBI, but while most of Podemos decisions are made by the, let's say, the directors, there is no possibility to include the UBI in the Podemos electoral manifestos for the moment.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Guy, would you like to add something, please?
Yeah, Angela, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you have been. I found that I've been approached by the Spanish media maybe 10 times this year, and have done a number of interviews. And I think in answer to Barb's question, that the debate in Catalonia, in Barcelona, is far more advanced than in other parts of Spain. And of course, the tension between Madrid and Barcelona is partly to do with the fact that the republicanism that Danny and you and others represent is very strong in Catalonia, and the opposite is strong with the Franco traditions in and around Madrid. So I think the geopolitics of the debate on basic income is very much tied up with the conflict, if you like, between Catalonia and the rest of Spain. That complicates the picture. But I personally think you have such a good group that it's going to continue to grow in Spain, especially as this scheme that they're introduced is just so bad. It is so bad that very quickly the evidence will be that it's not working. So I feel that you should feel confident that the support will grow. And we just need more good people like yourselves working on the issues in Spain.
Thank you, Guy. Valeria would like to contribute. Dear Valeria, please unmute yourself.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you, Ali, again. I would like to ask Angel about the Podemos. The question, what is gender parity of the people who are governing or they are on the top of the Podemos?
You mean gender balance in between,
yes.
inside Podemos?
Yes.
I think there are a lot of women in the top places of Podemos, no? And more there are women inside Podemos, no? Even the Pablo Iglesias' wife is the second one in the Podemos ranking. No, so I think the gender balance in Podemos is good. It's quite good, better than in other political parties in Spain.
Well,
Podemos are clearly in favor of feminism and the fight of women for their rights, etc.
Thank you, Angela. Well, I asked that because I would like to tell you a little bit what is going on in Slovenia. Well, today again, Minister for Social Affairs proclaimed that he's willing to talk about universal basic income, universal child benefits in a way of basic income. But on the other hand, in our personal correspondence, he said he's not going to work on that, and that he's not planning any working group at all. What I'm saying is this. In media, universal basic income is the first, foremost popular idea of this government and of everyone, but none is doing universal basic income as we tried to teach them the last 10 years. Even more, they are lying all the time about it. Well, I would like to tell you also that let me say, if everyone, I don't know who knows me, but I did 10 years of advocacy in Slovenia, and I was coordinator of Slovenia Network the last few years. But I stepped out of this because I'm planning to work on UBI and feminism, and I'm planning to start a trade union for mothers because I would like to start with the idea that UBI is kind of reimbursement for unpaid female work. I don't know, Guy, maybe you remember when I talked about that in Slovenia, that I believe I have to convince women that they have to strike until in Slovenia UBI won't be introduced. I believe we talked about that this is example of Greek women from antique, and actually that's like a plan for this summer.
Good.
So that's my point.
Good.
Thank you, Valeria. One more contribution from Gerdur. Gerdur, please. Dear Gerdur, would you please unmute yourself? On the left at the bottom corner, left bottom corner. Now
Okay,
it's okay.
I got it. I had some problem with the computer. What I wanted to ask, Engel, that is about Pablo. What's the name of? How do you say it? Of this what is the name of the political party again? Podemos, yeah. Did they invite in a discussion about UBI in the media at all before they took it off their agenda? How did they find out that the public was not interested? Did they have objections, or did they have any signs that people were not interested? Because people don't get interested if they're not introduced regular, in a good way to an idea. You get hungry when you smell the good food, and it's the same thing. If you don't know what is the discussion, you won't agree to it. I have here in Iceland, we are trying to get people interested, and it's unbelievably hard because they only read the headings. They don't read the content. So I'm wondering in Spain if people are aware of the content of what UBI is all about.
I think most people in Spain are not don't really know what UBI is about. So we find every day people who have a diffuse idea of what UBI is. They don't have a clear idea of what UBI is, no? Above all, because the media have confused a lot, have mixed the UBI with minimum income, trying to put in the same bag means-tested subsidies and UBI, so they produce a lot of confusion inside the heads of the people, no? So I think most people don't have a clear idea of what UBI is in Spain for the moment.
No, but what I was curious about is what if this political party, Podemos, if they did some special introduction within their party or publicly about the contents, because they did embrace it in the beginning, and then they took it out for some reason or another. But as a political party, did they themselves promote it specially?
Yeah, in the beginning of Podemos, in the 2014 European elections, Podemos included UBI in their electoral manifesto. But after it, they removed it because they said a lot of attacks coming from the media and from some people. A lot of attacks they received was because of this UBI inclusion in their electoral manifesto. So after it, they removed. And Errejón, the friend of Pablo Iglesias, in the beginning was the responsible of the organizing the party, he attended a UBI, Spanish UBI network symposium, and he said when we asked him why Podemos removed UBI, he answered that the Spanish society was not prepared for UBI. No, so we we felt really disappointed. No, the problem is that they prioritize votes above principles. No, they renounce it, the principles, and they only mind votes. And if you renounce your principles, if you don't follow your principles, you can go, I don't know where, to other really different point.
Thank you, Yarder, and thank you, Angel. Should I say Angel or Ankle?
Angel.
In Spanish is Ángel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But you can say in English, Angel.
Okay. Okay.
You're no angel. You're no angel.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It was really a big discussion point in Turkey too. It was in the media, both written media and also in the televisions. So thank you very much, Uncle. Dear friends, we can continue with our next agenda item, which is recent UBI discussions in Canada and the related news. And our dear friends, Sheila Reger and Tony Pickard will be sharing their presentation with us. Sheila, I guess you will start. And you mentioned that you would like to use a drawing whenever you like. I can share it in the screen, or you can share yourself, how you like.
No, I can't share it myself. That's my problem.
Okay, I'm waiting your direction.
I'm no good at the technology, but since we're having a language debate, Guy, can we call you Guy?
If you like. Or Guido in Italian.
Okay. So I'm going to start. Tony's going to tell you about what we're doing. I'm going to very briefly outline the Canadian context. And you're going to see that we are going in a direction that some of you might find suspicious. We think it's really good. Okay, so, and I'm gonna go really quickly, and this is like hugely overly simplistic. It's all politics now for us. Canada is a federation. So we have a federal government, we have 13 subnational jurisdictions. The federal government delivers unconditional cash transfers to seniors and to families with children. The federal government delivers unemployment insurance as a form of income security. There are tons of people who for many reasons don't qualify, even if they've been contributing. If you're 18 to 64, however, and you don't have children at home, you don't meet the unemployment conditions, you don't have enough employment income of your own to get by, it's too bad. You are out of luck. There is virtually nothing for you to support your efforts, virtually nothing, tiny bits. When you're destitute enough, however, you get kicked into the subnational provincial welfare systems. They're just bad. Everything about them is horrible. I won't go into any detail, but it's like if you're a Canadian, then you become a different kind of citizen. And I won't go into all of the reasons for that, but it is really important for us now to recognize that federal-provincial distinction. Second major point, we have a minority federal government. That means they depend on either the left or the right to help them get things through. Much of the major governing party, I think, sort of leans left a little bit, except maybe the finance minister, who might lean a little closer the other way. This is an issue for us in terms of who we try to ally with and what we try to do. But the minority situation means that change is more possible than usual. So that's our general thing, and then COVID hit. And the federal government stepped in fast. It provided emergency benefits. For shorthand, I'm going to call it CERB. What I mean by this. So it's fast. It showed that the federal government could lead. It showed that our revenue agency had a lot more capacity than they led anybody to believe in order to be responsive to changing circumstances. But the emergency benefits were still very much tied to employment, so they leave lots of people out. There's also a design flaw that actually penalizes employment. The next step in this then is everything else that's going on in the world. So we have in Canada, the gaps in CERB, times racism, times colonialism, times sexism, and they've all collided. So for all of these reasons, you've got all of these people in need, you've got debt forecast to be really huge. In all of this, we have discovered, like the claims in Spain, and I think it's real in Canada, there is no taste for even a hint of anything that looks like it's going to give money to rich people. And our Prime Minister stated that very clearly. And so the idea of a UBI model is really hard for people to fathom. There is, however, a taste for taxing the wealthy, which is good. And we find a lot more support for basic income now in this environment. So our organization, the Basic Income Canada Network, then shifted from an openness to different models. And we modeled 3, and we modeled a UBI. We modeled all of them, and we showed how you pay for them. But in May, with all of this happening, we have now focused on one model. It is a guarantee model. It's not a UBI, but it clearly puts things in the federal realm. And if we can get the federal realm to take full responsibility for income security and not throw some people out, that's just huge for us. So now, Ali, if you can put up that chart. So I have a graph that shows you what this proposal looks like. And there are other similar proposals in Canada like this. There's growing convergence. So this is option 1, but I have to stress that it shows the net impact of all of our options. So in this one, the gray line is the basic income amount. So it's high at the beginning and then it tapers off as you get other income. The purple line shows a fairly steep curve with people with very little income at the bottom, and it of course skyrockets in the 10th decile. And then with the basic income, you see that it flattens that inequality curve, making a huge difference at the lower end. Very often policy proposals in Canada end up dinging this middle ground. We designed ours to make sure that didn't happen and that we hit the wealthy. There are ways that the wealthy can be hit more. But this is the net effect. Like once you take all of the tax system things into consideration, this would be the net effect of all of our models. So this is really what we're trying to propose. And I just got news this morning that the Senate Finance Committee is making recommendations coming out of its work on COVID that are proposing, very much along the lines of what we want. So I'm done. So you can take that down, Ali, and move to Tony and all.
Ali, do you want me to just start?
Please, Tony, word is yours. Okay. I was muted.
Okay. I thought that I would do something different from what Sheila has done. I would like to talk to you about the grassroots movement, which is now started with BICN. It's now a good, I don't know how many years old, started in 2008. And I would like to describe what I consider to be one of our major initiatives And I think it's really effective and interesting and quite worthwhile considering, because I think it could be done anywhere to raise awareness and to educate the populace about basic income. We call it the cases for basic income with respect to particular, what we call sectors in the community or in the country. So if you think of the map of the country, there are various sectors, as we call them loosely. For example, the health sector, the food security sector, the arts, women, justice, the LGBTQ communities. Those sectors already have projects going in them. And we're contemplating projects in the farming sector, with respect to democracy, with respect to faith communities, municipalities, the environment, and basically there's an endless set of possibilities. So what are these things? How are they done? The person who originated the concept is Barb Borax, who's sometimes been in these meetings. And she plays a role, a very limited role, with respect to each of the case projects as an overall coordinator. Her main, most crucial contribution is to select a point person for the sector, a knowledgeable, experienced, hopefully somewhat well-known point person. And then throughout, she acts as an advisor as things unroll, but basically the people from the sector do the work. So the point person gathers one or two colleagues to operate as an organizing committee. So you have 2 or 3, maybe 4 people organizing a workshop or a roundtable discussion for the sector. And they invite stakeholders who work in the sector or come to the sector through different doorways. They could be researchers, they could be practitioners, they could be advocacy organizations, or their representatives rather. They could be representatives of institutions which have some stake in the sector. And they could be individuals who suffer from the negative issues in the sector. So for food security, for example, that might be food insecure people. It could be, for institutions, food bank administrators. It could be advocacy organizations, could be researchers in nutrition, in health economics, in dietitians, and so forth. Just to give you a sense, the idea is to get together a variety of experienced people in the work and the life in that sector, and to generate a discussion. So the 3 organizing people collect their connections, they generate a list, and they invite people till they get to about 20 or 25 people usually. Then, once they have that group committed to attending a roundtable discussion or a workshop, whatever the format is going to be for that group, they create a list of questions that will be discussed, and they send relevant materials to every participant, and they explain the expectation that people will come well prepared for the discussion. And then, of course, they organize a venue, a date, and all of that. And there was a venue for one of the sector workshops. Oh, time is up already. Okay, I'll just finish off then. Then the discussion is had. Barb is there just to make sure that they stick to the general point, which is to relate the impact of basic income, positive or if so negative, on the life and work in the sector. They decide on the next steps in terms of outputs from their workshop, and 3 so far have generated outputs. The work sector, that's paid labor sector, published a formal report, which is online and could be read. The women's group, or the women's roundtable, is preparing an open letter to be sent to the Prime Minister and relevant ministers, and will maybe create a webinar. The arts sector has developed a template letter which the institutional members of the group are going to send to all the members of the institutions to personalize and send to parliamentarians. And that's enough sense of the variety of things that come out of these workshops. The objectives overall are, first of all, for the movement to learn what can be learned about the potential impact of basic income in the various sectors. That's one. A second is to educate the stakeholders who are there about basic income itself, and from us, and because there will be a basic income advocate from the sector, from us and from each other, they discover potential impacts. The third is it creates a core of influential, knowledgeable about basic income people in the sector, with the hope they'll spread and persuade others in the sector and educate others. And finally, coming back to the idea of the jigsaw puzzle of the nation, the sectors in the nation, putting together the various outputs, which we'll do in the end, has a package for government about much more detailed impacts on the lives of Canadians in various sectors that a basic income could have. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Sheila. Peter Brake from New Zealand. Dear Peter, please, word is yours.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Oh, thank you. Sheila, yeah, just looking at that graph, you had 25,000 Canadian dollars, I think, is the basic income, given I've read that correctly. That's $500 per week. I think that's about 370 US. I'm just trying to get to grips with my own project in terms of what it would mean in Canada, and I was hoping that the US and Canadian examples were similar. Why is it 50% higher than the US's $250 per week basic income?
This is why, yeah, this is why we use the graph to show the curve, because getting into the numbers in different currencies is tricky. For us, actually modeled in 2017, this is $22,000 a year for a single person. Our emergency benefit is a little higher than that, and we support that. It's $2,000 a month. And these are all income tested, the way our other programs for seniors and kids work. So, you know, we have a 40% reduction rate as people get other income. The American plan, I think, that most people talk about is a much lower benefit, but distributed on an individual basis. So that, I think the other important thing to mention here is that our amount is based on a kind of amalgamation of different low-income measures and poverty lines. we have an official poverty line here that lots of people don't like. We have a number of other low income measures that do different things. People use different measurements. This kind of skated through the middle of those. So what happens, and what this graph shows, is that essentially it eliminates poverty in Canada and provides security for the middle class while getting the higher income brackets to return to a much fairer kind of contribution than has been happening in the last number of years.
Yeah, I noticed the break-even points are, I think, around 70,000 Canadian dollars. Your unemployment benefit insurance scheme, I think, tops out at 550 odd Canadian dollars. How low can the unemployment benefit be if you don't have insurance in Canada? What's the minimum unemployment benefit in Canada?
Oh, that's the problem. If you don't qualify for benefits, like if you don't meet all the conditions for the employment insurance program, you're simply out of luck.
Oh,
and it
yes.
doesn't matter if you have contributed for a long time or a lifetime even. So anything that's strictly tied to employment in Canada is really flawed.
Wow.
It's really flawed, and that's our problem. It's like we have stuff that works for relatively what you would say, you know, sort of upper working class, middle class kind of thing. And then we have the programs for when you become destitute. And there's not much of anything in the middle there that protects people from falling into extreme hardship.
And the destitute amount of money?
In Ontario would be about $800, which would be I don't know, like half of the poverty line, barely. And that's, it all depends. It depends on whether you have a disability or whether they consider you employable. It depends on a whole bunch of other factors. If they don't like you one day, your benefit will go down. It's extraordinarily punitive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Oh, dear Guy, please, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Sheila and Tony, interesting as always. One of the thoughts I've been having over the last couple of years with regards to Canada is that you have the potential to create what I've been calling a commons fund with eco-taxes, wealth taxes, contributing to building a fund like the Alaska Permanent Fund or the Norwegian Pension Fund. And I've been following the discussions in British Columbia about carbon taxes and carbon dividends. How do you see the debate on eco-taxes and capital funds and paying a basic income out of that, rather than thinking of basic income as merely a reform of the social benefits system? Do you think that's going anywhere, that debate?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I should clarify that our modeling that shows up in this graph for all of our options, our modeling is based on exactly what we can model. Like, it's done for governments, it's hard, unquestionable, unassailable numbers. So that's why we did that. And it's also because the tax system, you know, has a huge impact on what you actually end up with as disposable income. We have enormous tax breaks for the wealthy in there. Like, they should just be gone. There are things in there that have no rationale, except maybe they bought some votes one year from a group of people, like seniors sometimes. But what we stress in our report is that there are all kinds of other funding sources that can go into this. So anyone who complains about some of these tax changes that we're proposing, they can go look for other things. The idea of a wealth tax and inheritance tax in Canada is really growing. I don't know so much about the eco taxes and carbon taxes, but our Green Party in Canada is strongly supportive of basic income, and that's their sort of goal as well, to combine some of these things. And then it goes back to what Tony was talking about too, in a way, that we're trying to get these different sectors, people who are worried about income security and climate change and racism and sexism, to get them together to find ways to deal with these things. We also have huge downstream costs in Canada. Our poverty industry, or what Barb calls the misery industry, lays out extraordinary amounts of money.
Yep, crazy.
Extraordinary.
Extraordinary, yeah. Crazy. Okay, thanks.
If I could, I'd also like to say to Guy that so far as I know, there is no active discussion in Canada about a wealth fund per se, setting up a wealth fund that recipients of cash transfers could become shareholders in over time, and thereby become owners in the wealth fund in a way. That's only just beginning, and I think it personally, I think it has real potential, but in fairness, there's no discussion of it broadly in Canada at all, so far as I know.
I remember being in Alberta, and there was a discussion going on there with the new political party on the left, but that was about 5 years ago, and there was genuine feeling that they could use the oil as the basis of creating such a fund and pay a basic income out of that. And in British Columbia, there is this debate about carbon tax only being feasible if the revenue is recycled in carbon dividends, because otherwise it's regressive. And as I understood it, there's quite a lot of sentiment in support of a carbon tax, precisely because it would be married with carbon dividends, which is a form of basic income.
Well, clearly you know more about that than I do, Guy. In Alberta, the government has changed.
Yeah, I know that. I know that.
Right.
I do know that. Unfortunately.
And the fossil fuel industry is in such a mess right now that who knows what's going to happen in Alberta, what's going to happen with the carbon tax. But you're right, it could be. And if it's happening in BC, that's great. I didn't know that conversation was taking place, but I actually think the concept has a lot of potential. But it's not the focus of the
understand.
movement at the moment.
Okay, thanks.
The other thing politically that's happening too is that a lot of organizations in Canada who are working for a range of social justice and environmental causes are aligning. And so the environment movement here is really strong. It's really young as well. And that gives it some impetus and some real connection to people involved increasingly in the basic income movement. So we're finding a lot more linkages happening.
Good, good, great.
Right, and just adding to that, although Sheila, your voice broke up for me for a moment, I'm not sure if you said this, we have a newly created youth network, which is national in reach, and which is very easily and closely aligned with the environmental movements in Canada, which are people largely, if not entirely, but largely by young people. So that marriage of the young people who are going to be voting for a very long time of basic income and environmental campaigns is very powerful.
That's right, that's right. Thanks very much.
Thank you, dear friends. Peter would like to contribute. Here, Peter.
Yeah, with the carbon tax and dividend, I'm just trying to adjust some of my figures based on the US model. I think it was, someone perhaps might know, the carbon tax model within the US 3 years ago that they forwarded. Was it $50 per week per person? Was that about right? Does anyone know?
It's more than that, but I forget the figures. It's more than that.
Okay. I'll look back at it. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you very much, Sheila. Thank you very much, Tony. We had the chance to hear your presentation, very nice presentation regarding Canada. So we can go to our next agenda item. This time I will try to contribute. And I will try to share a screen. I will be using a PowerPoint. That's why let me share the screen first. Okay. Dear friends, these web-based or Zoom-based meetings are very beneficial for me. In fact, they were started by our dear friend Jenna, but after the COVID issue, now we have more frequent ones, and they are very, very beneficial, at least for me. But I would like to open another discussion, if you don't mind. Within my short presentation, I would like to start a discussion regarding an international collaboration mechanism, mostly targeting activism-based campaigns for UBI advocacy. A detailed video recording is also under preparation, but I preferred to hear your positive or negative critics and also advices before the completion of the recording. Let me go like this. Okay. Although they may contain minor differences or may have different priorities, our motives and reasons for advocating for basic income are almost common and similar. While all of them are very important, one of the motives I attach great importance is that without UBI, or in other words, without the economical independency of the people, it's not possible to have a healthy democracy practice with healthy results. Therefore, I believe democracy must and will enable universal basic income, which in fact will be the savior of herself too. Another issue is the degeneration or denigration of the UBI concept. As UBI advocates, we all are allocating our time, resources, and efforts for the realization of UBI in our home countries. But we are encountering different versions of UBI policies, UBI proposals, experimental studies on UBI, or UBI pilots. They are all structured with highly modified UBI understandings. Most of the time, these are degenerating or denigrating the UBI concept, where mostly politicians and political parties are playing the major role. Also, it is very common that politicians and political parties do not have an adequate understanding of UBI, or even worse, they are not in favor of an UBI which will lead to emancipation of people. At this point, I believe the UBI advocates have a very crucial role. I believe unconditional and vital mission of all of us should be to disseminate and protect the characteristics and soul of UBI. Another issue is the worldwide or cross-border effects. Worldwide cross-border effects of UBI advocacy efforts is another important issue. In today's world, as a result of the web-based developed communication technologies, worldwide effects of UBI related every attempt or every progress or every failure or every news are very, very important. A referendum or an experimental study or a pilot or a petition campaign, whatever, they are being followed by all the world. Therefore, we have to be very careful and sensitive regarding the positioning and success of such attempts. I mentioned this, and I will come why I mentioned this in the future stages. Another issue is about the media coverage. Regarding UBI discussions, we should target a broader media coverage, both at national level and also at international level. It is interesting that the international events, especially with international collaboration, are more likely to be captured by the media. Therefore, we have to increase the international collaboration, both qualitatively and quantitatively. Another issue is, what is the solution? I guess the solution lies on 3 pillars, which is international communication, interaction, and collaboration of the UBI advocates. If we can sustain these, then we will observe that UBI advocacy efforts of us will be moving ahead and reaching to our goals much more easily. And another important advantage of us is that with today's communication tools, all these can be realized very easily, effectively, and almost without any cost, almost free of charge. Some questions that come into mind are, how can we have an international collaboration mechanism, mostly targeting activism-based campaigns? What kind of tools do we have? Which principles should we adopt? And which international projects we can support in a more structural manner? At this stage, just to say a few words, what kind of tools do we have? I guess these bi-weekly meetings are an important tool. Also the email group, and maybe also the record book, also the Slack channels. But we can add new tools to realize this international communication, interaction, and collaboration. Also, which principles should we adopt? I think if we are going to structure something, I mean, if we are going to have a structural approach, maybe we should adopt certain principles. These are all draft. Definitely, it should be based on voluntary contributions. Definitely, we should not have any donation campaigns. We shouldn't apply for any project funding, or we shouldn't deal with any money affairs. In fact, they are the works of the UBI networks. I mean, their field of activity. UBI networks can do this, but we should just try to make things easy for all of them. We should target to ease the communication, interaction, and collaboration. It should be a solidarity and a mutual benefits model. I think this summarizes best. This is the best summary of the set of principles that should be adopted. It should be a solidarity-based mutual benefits model and target to disseminate an exchange of information experiences. Maybe this environment, I mean, if you can introduce, I mean, the mechanism should be a promotion place for UBI-related projects. Definitely, it shouldn't have any binding structure or binding decision. Of course, we can use the bi-weekly meetings and maybe Zoom-based. We can make some surveys for decision-making. We can, of course, allow people to contribute limitedly, partly, or partially. And we can conduct our activities in the form of working groups. When it comes to the international projects, which projects we can support? Maybe Basic Income Week is something very important. Also, Basic Income March. Today, Stacy is not with us, but Jenna is with us. Basic Income Week, she's trying to make it stronger, and we should support her. Also, the surveys by the working group number 10. Also, we did something very good by working group number 1, the letter to the Secretary General of the United Nations. Also, we can deal with we can make it stronger. I mean, we can make the worldwide meeting stronger, and we can make the record book stronger, or the email group much better. I mean, maybe we can add more friends from more different countries. But there is another one, which is ECI UBI campaign, which will be starting by September this year. I would like to go into details of this, because my idea is, I mean, in my mind, since 2 years, I'm let's say partially giving contribution to the development of this ECI UBI campaign. There were 4 different proposals. At the end of the day, it's a signature collection campaign. But the interesting point of this ECI UBI campaign is, in fact, ECI means European Citizens Initiative, is that it is targeting to a huge geography and huge number of countries, 27 countries at the same time. And the population addressed is 7% of the population of the whole world. at once. The campaign will continue for a year, and the target is to reach to 1 million signatures at the end of the year. Of course, you have to fulfill the quota expectations, at least minimum of 7 countries. But another interesting and very, very valuable part of this campaign is that there are 24 official languages and more than 60 other indigenous languages. This means that within a year time, within a huge geography, a huge number of people will be addressed by this campaign with 23, 24, in fact, maybe 70, 80 different languages. It will be something very interesting for the whole world. And I mean, the social media, the user density, the population address size, they are very interesting too. But the thing is, the success of this campaign will definitely make positive impacts to our efforts. But if they fail, then we will receive negative impacts. But the huge success of it will give huge positive impacts to our advocacy efforts in the world. So I think we should share all our experiences, ideas, and resources and contribute to this campaign. I mean, this is an example only. But one thing I would like to say lastly is that this campaign, as it is addressing 27 countries with 84 different languages, 7% of the world population, it will be very, very important if it is successful, because it will be a very important reference, benchmark, and example to all of us. So my point is, we should somehow structure an international collaboration mechanism for activism. And it should not only cover this ECI, of course, maybe it should cover the others, the Basic Income Week, Basic Income March, or the survey studies, I mean, maybe some new ones, definitely. This is, I think, will give, this is, I think, really important. That's what I would like to say at this stage. I would like to hear your critics or contributions or advices. Thank you. I think I didn't take a long time of yours. Thank you very much. Oh, I would like to say one thing. I'm sorry, I forgot it. We had discussed this together with, at different events, together with Ingun, Gerder, Klaus, Sarat. I know we shared these ideas several times at several, Shohabana. What do you think? Should we have such an effort to support in the framework of solidarity plus mutual benefits? Nobody?
Oh, yeah. Chat.
Nobody would like to say anything, positive or negative, or any advice? Or Gerder, please.
Yes, please.
Oh, Eduardo also.
Very brief. I consider your suggestions and very positive. I would like to engage myself in all of them. And I'm sorry, I have a meeting now at in a few minutes now. I need to go to this other meeting at this São Paulo City Council, where we are considering the debate, and I have presented a emergency basic income proposition that will be debated this week, and I need to be there now. Thank you very much. Congratulations for you all. Thank you. I will be in the next.
We will be in connection with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dear Gerder, I'm sorry, please.
Okay. What I was thinking, I am very happy about this European Union agreement concerning this collection of signatures, but it surprises me or disturbs me a bit that we are doing this on a limited, in a limited union of Europe, instead of just doing it globally with the support of Europe. Of course, yeah, I think that we should urge the European Union to support a global movement of UBI. We are one world, and if anything we should have learned by now, that is, we are one world. And if we have commercial contacts with whoever, to our neighbors or to our neighbor nations or to whoever, that is a private matter between these people, but not a global matter. And I think that globalization, in the way it has been implied for the last, since it was taken on as such, has instead of global cooperation, it has been global competition in a big way, and they have been based on takeovers instead of taking part. And I think it's time now that we say, okay, this is a good idea that Europe leads this discussion or whatever, but we should do it on a global basis. Iceland, we are not a part of the EU, not because of any high thought motives, but it's because of egocentrical views of keeping all of our things to ourselves. It is not because that we don't want not because we think that we should share, but the opposite. But I think that we have to focus on sharing and daring to share. And I think now that UBI should be the promotion of stopping slavery once and for all. And slavery has taken a different form. The slave owner now is the big corporation and big money. And we all agreed to it. We accept it, both we are left or right or up or down, we accept it. We accept that our lifeline is linked to a salary list. We have to have monthly salary from an employer, and we all accept it. So I think that we should think beyond it, and we should end slavery with the UBI. It should be a mandatory payment from each government around the world to its citizens. I know it is far-fetched in the idea because it is the abolition of slavery. It took a long time to get to the point where we are, and it might be even more struggle to, but I actually think it should be a part of the UBI discussion. But anyway, so this is my opinion, and I want to unify the world, and I think now it's the time.
Thank you, Gerda. Dear friends, before going to the following questions, I would like to make clear certain points. This is a project developed under the umbrella of the Universal Basic Income Europe, but it is targeting EU because this is a already established mechanism of EU. They say, Gerda, what you say, we can work for it too. But here, there is a ongoing something, we should support it because it will be followed by the whole world. I mean, that many different languages, that many countries, that big population. I mean, they are not opposing to each other. We can support them too, and we can also structure something else, like you said too.
No, that's okay. Then we understand each other. So I totally agree to supporting it and being a part and supporting it. Well, I'm not a part of it, and England will not be a part of it, but we will support it, of course. But I think that our vision should be beyond that. This should be like a minor project as such, but we are part of it and we support it wholly, like every step in that direction, of course. But what I mean that we should think above it.
Sure.
With UBI, and I think that is why we have to participate in the discussion and lead it that way, so that so we can use this campaign with the EU to educate the rest of the world together with us.
That is just what Ali said.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe, thank you, Robin. We can continue with Gabriela. Dear Gabriela, please
Yes,
unmute
I'm here.
yourself. Yeah, please.
Thanks. Thanks, Ali. Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on that because this is very much in line with the conversations we have had in the Emergent Latin American Network. As I shared with some of you, we had our first event last week, which was very successful, and we are only now, after many years in which people have talked about the issue in very isolated efforts, we're only now starting to talk among ourselves. So this is really a good moment also to connect with discussions in other parts of the world. Sometimes I feel here, people do feel kind of isolated and left out of the conversations on basic income. We are perceived as being outside of it, and it would be great to use an effort like this to change that. Of course, there is a language barrier, but I think there is a lot to do. So just to say that we are also having this sort of conversations among ourselves. And I think there is a lot to do to make more cross conversations between Latin America and Chile in particular, that's where I am, and the rest of the network. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Gabriela. Dear Ingun. Yeah, please unmute yourself, Ingun. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I think that was a great presentation from Ali, and it's a good overview. And it's like, because we are so many people from all over the world, we actually need to repeat a common understanding of what this work is altogether. So I think it's really important to point out that we work at the same time, we're working at a national level, at a regional level, and at a global level. And that's what we're doing all the time. And these meetings are the best example of that combination that we actually are doing now every second week. And I think maybe if you meant that presentation as an overview over the activities, maybe we should add that we also are doing networking and building alliances with other types of organizations. Because almost every meeting we do mention and we do talk about the very important links to the environmental movement and the SDGs. So networking and building alliances with other groups that also are working for the SDGs and the environmental issues, maybe we should add that to the overview. Of course, it can be added in the list of working groups, but I find your presentation most like a strategy document that we actually can use to help ourselves and remind ourselves of what we're doing together. And the other way of building alliances, in addition to the environmental movement, is through political parties. I guess many of us are linked in green movements or red movements. And that is also a strategic way of working that we could mention in such an overview. So just to add to the list of Ali's very good contribution, I think this building of alliances with other movements that are also working for a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingun. I better not give answers one by one, so I will leave my term to the end so that it will be more fair. Dear Malcolm?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think the more networks and kinds of activity that occur around the world, the better. One of the things that people might want to link into is the BN website. We now have a new website, which is working a lot better than the old one. And we are, as fast as possible, collecting articles about what's happening around the world. And this is a resource for everyone to use because we're trying to make sure that what's on there is accurate information. So do have a look at the website, the BN website, and if your country is not represented among the articles on the news tab, then please, amongst yourselves, would you consider researching and writing one? Look at the kinds of articles that are there already. We have a good one on Spain. Lyra Rincon has been keeping that up to date for us, which is very good. We don't yet have one on Canada and on the different interpretations of basic income in Canada and why that is the case, and the things that have been happening in Canada, and that would be most useful to have on the site. And there are lots of other countries that haven't yet been covered. So if you're thinking of writing an article, please write to Julio, who I don't think is here today, or to myself, and we'll be very happy to hold a discussion with you. And as I say, we're trying to build the best resource we can for everyone to use. Thank you.
Thank you, Malcolm. Dear Hannes, please.
I would like to support and also extend Ingun's point that we should reach out to other networks that are already existing. So be it that this is on some sort of party level, we've heard a lot from Spain today and other countries where there could be like some Green Party, some Socialist Party, and there's an established network, and then reach out to these people and see to which degree they might be in favor of basic income. But also think about other networks, something like Fridays for Future, or if you're leaning towards that direction, also Extinction Rebellion, or whatever you could think of, just networks that are already established, which might not have social security as their focus, but which might be very much in support of the idea of basic income. And I think this is where we should join forces with other networks. I just wanted to, second Ingun's point. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannes. Robin, I guess you had raised your hand. You changed your mind?
No, I can say something.
Please.
It's a good thing, the joining of networks, but you can think of networks out of the scope of UBI. Maybe in Holland, farmers are protesting about the nitrogen exhale of their food for the cows and so. But the one problem is with those farmers, they only have so much cows or animals or chicken, because if they don't, they can't pay the banks for their mortgage, and they can't eat. So they have to have more cows for more paying the rent. So you can target them also to tell them, when you have a basic income, you don't need so many cows, you don't need so many land, so many tractors, etc. And that is every time in the news there's a case which is not related to basic income, but you can extend it as the basic income as a solution for their problem. Do you understand?
Yes, yes. 100% I agree. Robin, you are finished?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dear Leandro?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ali, for your presentation. I was just concerned. I know that's not a very popular thing I would like to say about the basic income movement, but in our effort to make the whole thing of preservation of the concept of the basic income, sometimes it results as being a part of the real political debate. So I'm concerned that this preservation thing turn us into something that is out of politics at all, out of the real debate and the decision-making process. But I'm really aware that we should be concerned with very detailed concepts and characteristics of basic income to perform reforms in our social security systems, in our welfare systems. And that is happening now in Brazil a lot. Everyone is talking about basic income, and of course we are concerned about the basic income concept, but in order to reform the the minimum income schemes that we have, for example, taking basic income or its characteristics to the debate is very useful. For example, turning into something more universal as possible, more unconditional as possible, more regular as possible. That is something that is like a goal for us in our political action. And what concerns me is that eventually we keep preservation in a position that is more important than our political action. That's how I see our movement worldwide now, because sometimes I perceive that people want to keep discussing basic income as a concept more than performing political action to try to change something. And Inger and Hannes told us about partnering with different movements, and that requires us to present some positions that perhaps are part of real reforms, but of course oriented by guidelines of a basic income concept that is very strong and that we also appreciate a lot. It's just that we won't be as universal as unconditional right after the pandemics, right? We have a lot of steps to take towards that, and that involves negotiation and just a whole lot of things. That's just my concern, Ali, about what you presented us.
Thank you, Leandro. Valeria? Oh, pardon, Barb. Or okay, I'm sorry, Barb. Let's start with Valeria.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Barb, but this could be other way as well. I would just like to join to Leandro comment, because actually that's my way of thinking about UBI all the way. I'm teaching people in Slovenia that UBI is like really how does it look in ideal form, and how far away is proposed model, and how far away is current social system. So I'm teaching people to think about continuum, you know, from the worst to the best solution, so we don't quarrel all the time about ideal concept or not. Is it partial or is it full? Also, I mentioned several times in this group as well that in Slovenia we are introducing right now vouchers, or I don't know how to say, like, but you understand, vouchers for tourists or vouchers for education. They are talking about cultural vouchers as well. I know it's not the ideal, and in correspondence with the UBI idea of money cash transfer, but it's a step in a way that is introducing something what is unconditional and universal, and we are teaching people how UBI works. So yes, I agree that we should not stick very rigid to the concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria. Dear Barb?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, everyone. I didn't quite understand Leandro's worry about stuff. I guess, I also agree with Valeria. I think there's a lot of argument about, you know, having the right UBI, and it's not, I mean, to me, as long as it's individual, paid to everybody, and without means test or work requirement, that's fine, you know, and I feel like other things are kind of steps along the way, for sure. We just had a whole debate here in the UK about vouchers, all right? The government has been talking about vouchers. I guess my concern with vouchers is that, well, at least, I mean, our government is so corrupt that they will spend, like they did with the test and trace, which has collapsed again. They'll spend all the time trying to find a private company to make the vouchers, you know, that kind of thing. So rather than just putting over cash. And I feel like our governments, like particularly our government, is trying very hard to do anything but basic income. Okay, anything but basic income. So there's that. I certainly support, I find these meetings, and I'm sorry I've been away for the last couple, I find these meetings incredibly useful and incredibly inspiring to hear what everybody, you know, what everybody around the world is doing, and also for practical suggestions about, practical suggestions about action and about, you know, what, you know, like what the Canadian women were talking about in terms of like organizing by sector. We're just starting to do that here in the UK with UBI Lab Women and UBI Lab Youth. Yeah, so, I mean, whether it's around, I don't necessarily think it should be, you know, not that we shouldn't support the, of course we should support the ECI for sure, the European Citizens Initiative, but I don't think it needs to be based around that. Okay, I think, you know, there'll be a lot of materials that will come from the ECI that will be translated into Spanish and all the different languages, which I'm sure other countries will find useful. But yeah, I'm finding it very, again, very inspiring to go, you know, these meetings very inspiring, and that we can really learn a lot from each other in terms of action. So yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Barb. At the moment, I don't see anybody raising hand. So let me say a few words. Then if any other friend would like to continue, we can continue. The first thing is...
Ali,
Sarah, please. I made you close so that you will not be able to raise hand.
I couldn't figure out how to raise the hand. Anyway, it's excellent presentation, Ali, and I completely support what you have been saying in the presentation. And I think definitely the European initiative we should support as a group. Now, about activism, I think a couple of thoughts I would like to share. Now that basic income as an idea is now being discussed everywhere, everybody's writing about it, politicians are talking about it, and scholars are writing. Now, the thing is that we have many stakeholders here, many actors here. Now, and also, for example, some governments would like to use this fashionable terminology to push something that they have in mind. Okay, so we as advocates are in a situation where we have to really use our discretion. Is this a real basic income that we have always believed in? Does it have all the elements of emancipation that we have believed in? And what is our role as advocates in a situation like that? It's very possible, that sometimes we get carried away, that somebody is actually talking about it and saying universal basic income, we want to give. So I think we have a very difficult role there to use our discretion and be our own agency, rather than get carried away by either governments push, politicians push, political parties push. In India, for example, we have had last couple of years, we have been a lot of people talking, using the term universal basic income, but not exactly meaning what we have meant by that. So the point is that how do we generate our own activism globally, come together, find allies, and still stick to our philosophical foundations and not lose our foundation. Now, this is not an easy thing to do. So I would like to look at activism as like how we retain our fundamentals. This is just a thought, but I completely support the energy that your presentation had about activism. How do we do this global activism? What are the instruments we should have? And in addition to all that, I would just add this point I had in mind. That's all.
Thank you, Sarat. Tony, would you like to? Please, okay.
I would just like to say briefly that what's happening in Canada is a testament to the incredible work and impact of BN across the world. UBI has become a catchword in Canada. It does no longer mean in the media a classic, what I call a classic UBI, a demogrant for everyone. It refers to that, or what in this group is called a minimum basic income, or other forms. And I think that the claim that it's very, very difficult, or the argument that it's very, very difficult to maintain a good way of talking and proceeding without losing our fundamental agreement, our fundamental values, it's very, very difficult. But speaking as a Canadian, where we're not advocating for a universal demogrant, but a universally accessible and unconditional program that's income tested, but not means tested, not wealth tested, just income tested. The effort to insist that nothing but a classic universal demogrant is a real basic income is very alienating and disheartening. And like it makes me, and I don't know about my other colleagues in Canada, feel like we're really second-class citizens in this group, although we're working very hard and getting closer and closer to implementation of the basic income guarantee. So I just wanted to say that UBI, at least in Canada, is now a generic phrase or acronym. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I would like to say a few words, but before I would like to share one of the previous slides, which is, I guess, this one. The proposal or the presentation was not for ECI UBI only. ECI UBI is a case. We can increase the number of such projects which internationally we can support. So it may be the Basic Income Week, the Basic Income March, or any other efforts at different corners of the world. For example, dear Hannes, I guess he is with us still. Yeah, okay, he is here. I know that he has a map project. Maybe we should help or support him within this map project. Maybe Hannes, in the next meeting, you should tell about this project so that we can increase more people from different corners of the world. Hannes is maybe, if you like, you can maybe very briefly tell about it in very short. Then next time you can tell the details. Would you like to?
Yeah. So just briefly, the idea was to basically just summarize some information that we have about like UBI advocates, be it in Europe, around the globe, and to start off with like a small group of countries so that we like get some experience with the format we should use in order to collect this data, and then make it accessible in a, let's say, visually appealing way, so that you have like a world map in front of you and you can just click on the country and then see who's active and whether that person belongs to a specific party or whether that is completely independent of a party and so on. Yeah, that's the brief description.
Thank you, Hannes. My point was, I mean, there are such very valuable projects. If we come together, we can support them and they become very strong, and there will be some cross-selling between the projects also. This project can help the other project and the other project can help to this project. So it will be like a turbo engine. Another issue is regarding England's contributions. She mentioned about networking of networks. The Greens, the Reds, the political parties, etc. It is a very important issue. In fact, maybe Robin and a few other friends who are in the coordination team, they received I had sent a small email message that we should be in contact with Ingun for her support regarding these networks. Another issue is, as Bart said, I mean, this 24 official languages plus the indigenous languages is a huge number of languages. And any campaigning material produced during this campaign can be used almost at all corners of the world. I mean, maybe not that much, but still it covers a huge area. That's why the campaign will introduce a lot of campaigning materials, the videos, cartoons, etc., etc. That's why I take it very serious also. One last thing I would like to say is that, or two last thing, maybe not last, but for the moment last. One thing is regarding, I would like to show another slide. By the way, this presentation is the limited version of the real presentation. It will be a part of a video recording in the coming days. But I am waiting for some information. That's why I couldn't finalize for today. And I will share it definitely. I received some messages, whether I will share it or not. I will share the PowerPoint presentation and the video recording also. But I would like to say something. I think this is also very important. Where is it? Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. I think the UBI advocacy efforts should, this is from a presentation, earlier presentation. Okay, anyhow, you see, similar to democracy or similar to UBI issue, it should develop in all countries simultaneously. This is my point. Because why? Because let's say there are neighboring countries with different taxation categories, different taxation rules, taxation rates. It's a big problem. Or the mutuals issue, the cross-border issues. They are very important problems. I mean, if you are going to talk about the mutuals, then you have to consider cross-border issues too. Pricing and competition power in different countries. Assume in one of them you have UBI, in the other one you don't have UBI. Then maybe the taxation issues and due to other reasons, custom rules, etc., it will be difficult companies to compete. So based on this, maybe there will be some human traffic or production facilities traffic or product traffic. I mean, based on the attractiveness, maybe human will move from one side to other. Maybe the production facilities will move from that side to the other, or the product traffic is very important also. Then the competitiveness will not be on the table anymore. So, and also double taxation issues is very important. Cross-border services is very important. Environmental issues is definitely very important. So my point is, UBI issue, okay, we are defending it in national basis, but in the globe, we have to develop, we have to try to develop it in all countries, in neighboring countries too. And otherwise, it may lead to other set of problems. That's why in any place where there is a UBI campaign, we have to support it, we have to disseminate the idea, and if certain countries, there is no such a idea on the table, then we have to maybe find some people who will start UBI advocates in their home countries. I'm sorry for my English, it's not my mother tongue, but I will give a better presentation in the coming days to you by email. Oh, Peter, I'm sorry I took a lot of time of yours. Dear Peter?
Absolutely, Ali, and nothing wrong with the English, man. You got your points across perfectly, and very important as well. And the European question is really a model for the world in terms of the differences within the European Union in terms of traffic, in terms of going next door to the next country to buy your goods, the difference in the taxation. If we can iron this stuff out in Europe, we can iron it out everywhere else in the world. The European experiment with this is absolutely critical so that we get in touch with all of the issues that comes from implementing such a new and dramatic change. So the European experiment, or the European basic income, to me is critical to the understanding of what it means to the world. So this is, to me, very big points that you've made in the last part of your talk there. That's great that you've brought these issues up. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much for your kind words. Robin, would you like to? Robin, would you like to say something?
No, this was just a thumbs up for the speech from Peter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Any other friends who would like to contribute? Maybe dear Peter Knight, dear Annie Miller?
Yeah.
Bart? Oh, Bart, please, Bart.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to just raise the issue, which doesn't really get talked about enough in the basic income movement, which is colonialism, and the kind of debt that countries that profited off of colonialism, have to countries that were colonized. And that and the issue of war, I think, is also something that we don't really talk enough about in the basic income movement. Just those two thoughts. Thanks.
Bob, is it possible for you we can put into the agenda in one of the coming meetings, and maybe you can make a small presentation to put the questions in the minds about this issue? Would you like to? Okay, that's great. Annie, Peter Knight, would you like to say anything? Dear Annie, you are muted. No, you don't. Okay. I guess Peter Knight. Okay, Sarat would like to say something, I guess. Dear Sarat?
Yeah, Peter, I think you need to unmute yourself. Okay, before that, I'll just make my single point. I just wanted to respond to what Tony has said, and I really admire the tremendous work the Canadian network is doing. I think our dilemma is, on the one hand, to keep the conversation going on with the people who are in the decision making and the policy makers and all that. At the same time, stick to our fundamentals. So the point is how we carry that burden that's our burden. We can't shift neither that way nor this way. We cannot say at the same time, when somebody is proposing something, we can't fall on them like a ton of bricks and say that this is completely a perversion of universal basic income. It's not. But I think at the same time, these are the people we have to have conversation with. How do we balance that is a very, very difficult thing. I completely agree. And I think what you're doing in Canada is really admirable. I think we just need to press on and do that. And secondly, on that's one point. It's a difficult role that we are all playing. It's not easy. The second point, Ali, I just wanted to share is that each country has its own peculiarities. Each country has its own local grammar, local language, and local ways of doing things. Now, I think even as we think of global networks, regional networks, we should find ways of empowering our local advocates in each of the countries. How do we do that? I think that's only when we empower the local advocates that our networks can also be successful. I just wanted to share that.
No need to.
Thank you, Sarah.
I didn't have anything to add.
Peter, I'm sorry. Peter, would you like to?
No, I have nothing to add. I'm just been observing the conversation. I had another meeting before, and if there's something additional, I'll put it in writing.
Thank you, Peter. Dear Eric, please.
Yes, hello to everybody. Yes, well, you know, we say always in our definition that basic income is paid to all members of one political unit. But how do we define this political unit? It could be a nation, it could be an ethnical group, it could be whatever. It could be Europe as well, or the whole world. The problem is only, I'm also quite disappointed about Europe, as Gerdur. Unfortunately, she left, Gerdur. She left. Gerdur from Iceland, she left already. But I absolutely agree with her. She is very Eurosceptical. And why is she Eurosceptical? Because, let's see, we have an ethnical minority in Europe, such as the Basque people in Spain, Basque people. They don't have their own country. So we have Catalonia, we have Basque. So we have in Europe, we have a lot of ethnical groups who are not, have not their own state, but they should have something. That is a political unit. As you have also in Turkey, you have the Kurdish people. And so we have a lot of problems to solve first, before we come to basic income. I think there is a lot of political problems first to be solved. Because otherwise, what is a political unit? It cannot be only one nation. And let's say one last thought I have, you know, England had no reason to leave Europe, but they left. And Hungary has a lot of reason to leave Europe, but we didn't left Europe, but maybe we should leave Europe. So that is what I'm saying. England went a good way because, you know, Scotland gets more independent, Wales and so on. This is local autonomy is very important also for the question for basic income. We have to solve other problems before we come to basic income. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I would like to say a few words after Eric's words. The issue is not Europe or not. I mean, the issue is not the ECI campaign. The issue is this campaign will be followed by the whole world. So we are targeting the individuals, and the population address is huge, the geography is huge, number of languages is huge. So we have to utilize this. We have to give full support to our friends for the maximization of the signatures. Secondly, regarding Sarat's contributions, he said that we have to empower the local advocates. Sarat here, yeah, he's very right. What I meant in my presentation regarding the media coverage, I said that if something is international or an international collaboration, then the media is capturing this kind of events more easily. So, for example, if we do a basic income discussion here in Turkey alone, with only Turkish academicians and activists, then it will not be a big issue. But if we put, let's say, like Guy or Barb or I don't know, some known figures from the basic income issue, then some of them may be aware of their books or other past activities, etc. So this is giving a support. So empowering local advocates is also possible through such small contributions.
Yes, but Ali, I'm not against Europe. I'm just saying there is how Europe is functioning is not always. It's sometimes it's very disappointing, you know, how Europe is working in Brussels, and so sometimes it's really disappointing. It's annoying also. So, but because also of the point that the oldest European ethnic group, like in Spain, the Basque people, they have no independency. They cannot. Madrid has the power, and they are ruling over the Catalonian and the Basque country. So, and like in your country, you have the same problem with the Kurdish people and so on. So what I'm saying, though, we don't have to. We have to be skeptical about Europe, and that's why I agree with Gerdur. So we have to see it in a larger, in the global world movement, and not only concentrating on Europe. of course, it's good if Europe do agree with basic income. That's good for the whole world, and I agree with this. But there is a lot of problems to solve still in Europe, ethnical problems and so on.
Thank you, Eric. Dear Robin?
Yeah, I want to say in reaction to that, the problems you describe, Eric, about the Basques or the Liechtenstein or the Roma or other groups in Europe, they can take up the UBI themselves and form their own group. And maybe they can say, we want as a group be an experiment. So it's not about Europe, the EU. It is just about the people who have to be informed to take up action for the UBI, and it's not depending on the EU. If you have a Brexit, it's a pity you have a Brexit, but you can still promote UBI in England or in Scotland, and Norway can have their own UBI. And when all the little groups are promoting the UBI, then the big picture is becoming much clearer.
I agree with that.
Thank you, Robin. Any other friends who would like to contribute? Oh, dear Willem, please.
Hello, everybody. I think when it comes to a UBI, then it is a constitutional state affair. And all different groups within that state, within that constitutional state, will get their UBI. So the different groups you were talking about, Eric and Robin is going on with that idea. They can be themselves within that constitutional state, receiving UBI, and then advocate for their own state wishes that they've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Willem. Dear Sheila, please. I'm sorry, I saw you late.
Thank you. I was looking for the electronic hand raising button, but mine doesn't seem to be working today. Just a couple of quick points. I want to follow up on what others have said. To me, I think like some of the stuff that Leandro was talking about the, understanding the principles, and some of what you have in your presentation, Ali, about like the reasons why we want this, like at a big global level that everybody can understand, that it's something that contributes to democracy, why we need this kind of thing as part of a global campaign, and not get too far into the mechanics of what each country or each political constituency is going to have to figure out on its own as a way of moving forward, but that we're all moving towards the principles, and we all have those to assess where we're going. So, as Sarah says, like this is a really tough job. And the closer we get to actually having policy implemented, the harder it becomes. When Ontario decided to pilot, there was a very small group of us who were allowed into a room where you can't leave with any documents, like this top secret thing where we were presented with 2 proposals. And the idea was that we were going to have a discussion about these proposals. Neither one was perfect. But one of them, we all just kind of, exchanged eye glances, and one of us spoke and said, well, this is all very interesting. Whatever the hell this is, it's not a basic income, and you are never going to get anybody to sell that for you as a basic income. So we're not talking about it. Just take it off the table. And now let's look at the one that you've got and see if we can work with that and make it better. And in Canada now, like we really are facing that. There are lots of proposals on the table, and we are going to be in the really difficult situation of having to say, this is close enough for now, or it's going in the right direction and we can accept it, or there's stuff in there that we really can't live with. The job is really hard. And so I agree with Sarah that like you empower the people who understand their own contexts to be able to deal with it as much as possible.
Thank you, Sheila. Dear friends, we can proceed with our agenda, but Peter is here, I guess. Peter? Oh, Peter, we have your presentation for the next agenda item, but I have a proposition, and Peter and all of you accept. Peter, if you think that it might be better, we can have it in the next meeting, but as the first agenda item. Would you prefer that one? Because some of our friends, unfortunately, left the meeting because they have to attend to other meetings. I mean, we are here, your preference. Would you like to tell about it today or in the next meeting as the first agenda item?
Absolutely, I want to talk about it today. I need to get this done and gone.
Okay.
I've talked about it, and this is the final presentation on this. It is going to happen from here, so it's. I'm hoping tomorrow, so I certainly don't want to wait another 2 weeks.
Please.
Okay, let's see if I can get the screen sharing to work.
It should.
Can you?
It should work.
All right. How the heck do we get to start? Optimize screen sharing video. Select a window or an application you want to share files. Gosh. I can't even find the desktop anymore. What's going on with this? Oh, it's files, Google Drive. I might be able to get into the Google Drive. That doesn't look like it. Optimize screen sharing. This is not where I normally go to when I push on share, Ali. How do I get to my desktop? It's not Microsoft, OneDrive,
it's
Google, and
Drive C.
Say again?
You have to go to your Explorer and then Drive C, and then under the tablet users, you find your user ID, and there is your desktop.
From within this box can you see the box that I've got? It's got Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, and Google Drive.
You have Windows C. You have to go Windows C.
So go out of here.
And then users.
Sorry, guys.
Or you have to drag and drop from the desktop to a folder you can easily access.
Yeah, well, I can't get to the folders from the...
Now you have to, not in Zoom, but just from your desktops themselves, put it in a folder. It's the same problem as Klaus always has.
Okay, so I'll just set up a new folder. New folder.
And do drag it from the desktop to that folder. And that folder shouldn't be on the desktop.
Understand. The folder, so I have to set up a folder somewhere else. So I've got it in different folders already. My problem is getting from Zoom to the folder.
What folders do you see from Zoom?
Nothing. So when I go into screen save, I've got Dropbox, Microsoft OneDrive, and Google Drive.
So you put your presentation on the Dropbox or the Google Drive, and then you can access it.
Dear friends, while waiting for Peter, is there any other friend who would like to share any other issue?
Dropbox. I've not had this problem before. Gosh.
I see none. Maybe I can brief you regarding working group number 10's activities, because Annie left and she sent a message to me. Working group number 10, you know, there are two surveys on the table. The first one is ongoing. Most probably you received and most probably you answered it. And the second one, the detailed one, is under preparation, still under preparation. But it is almost finished. Hopefully by next week, it will be released also. So working group number 10 is meeting weekly, weekly. And the new survey questions are quite good, satisfactory. I mean, it will be useful in the future too. It become a very good document. I mean, the set of questions of the survey number 2. Peter, any?
Look, I can't show the images, but look, they're all stuff that I've shown previously. So look, I'll just talk through the issues. So
how many slides, Peter? How many slides?
There's four slides. I can share them with you if you can share them, but it takes a while. I have actually already shared them through the email link as well.
I can open from here. I can try at least. I mean,
the issues that we have is sort of the global issues is that the UBI is a different amount in every country. In New Zealand, with the carbon tax and dividend, it's $370. So I can tailor make this thing for New Zealand very easily now that I've got the raw photos. I haven't got Photoshop, but I can get it for 30 days. So I did put on a email link to everybody that I can tailor make this thing for each country and also do it in any language. Now, initially I did it at $250 to support Andrew Yang's UBI in the US. Now, Andrew Yang's $250 has got a 10% VAT rate and a host of other funding options. Without those funding options, the VAT rate would need to be around 30%, which means that there's a cost of living increase of around 20%, slightly less than 20%. So the US would need to be getting somewhere around about $300, comparing like with like to income tax funding. The carbon tax and dividend is somewhere between 50 and 100 US dollars. So the 370 New Zealand dollars is very similar to the 370 odd US dollars. The Canadian one, if you translated US dollars into Canadian dollars, you're looking at about the same as they've been talking about, $500 a week. So the Photoshop allows me to change the dialogue. So I can change the amount for each country. So I've put that down as a thing that I can offer each country. Germany would need to be 220 euros. We can get that down to English pounds. England, Germany's cost of living very similar. Spain's a bit less than that. I do have a good grasp of what the European nations would need to have. So a further point that I wanted to discuss is, so these photos have a link to a set of letters that go to each Minister of Finance, Minister of COVID, Minister of the Environment. So the Facebook photo, the last Facebook photo has actually got a link on it to the site. Now, what the problem is that I wanted to discuss is that the only way for that link to work on the photo is if it's done through an advert. So I don't really want to make an advert. I want a shareable Facebook page. I think it looks better. I certainly would appreciate anybody else's viewpoint on that. So what would need to happen within the Facebook post is that the link would need to be in the initial comment or the initial blog at the top of the introduction to the picture, and it's still there, so people can find the link and press the link and get the letters to each government. So that's one issue. I don't have a budget for advertising in New Zealand. I could put a few dollars in to set it up that way, but it becomes an issue because we need to have different versions of the project for each different country. I'd love to have some of the Latin American details to be able to figure out what a basic income would need to be there. The pictures, could be shown anywhere in the world. We just need to have a translation into any language, or if anyone wants to go with the English version. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is what's required for the European Union. With your points, Ali, about we have different tax rates, we have different costs of living. People are going to shop next door to another country if it's cheaper there. Now, to me, it's the main issue that needs to be sorted out with the VAT funding of a UBI. And the question becomes, if you want to have the same rate of VAT European-wide, which is about 20% now, it's very much aligned. To keep that alignment, we've got to look at the worst case scenario, which happens to be Romania. So the economy in Romania and the cost of living in Romania really stretches your ability to get a basic income. The VAT rate has to be higher in Romania than Austria or Germany, much higher. So to stop the problems with movement within Europe to gather a UBI for a start, if one country gets it and the other countries don't have it, people will be trying to get to that country to get a basic income. To me, the European question is the big question, and it translates to the rest of the world. But if we can sort it out in Europe, we can sort it out everywhere. So there's two pieces of information that I don't have to complete the Romanian numbers. And I've asked the Freiburg University for assistance with it. They've said, yep, we're working on this project together, but we haven't got the information that we need, and we need to get this thing out there. The moment has already arrived. So I'm fairly comfortable to get into Photoshop, change the numbers from 250 US to a generic $370. That will keep the US and New Zealand pretty much sharing the same information. The Canadian one, to my mind, we need to move it up to between $450 and $500 to keep it in line with what the US is. Now, I can put these things on my Facebook page, the Universal Entitlement Facebook page, so people can go in there and share it into their own country. But to me, it is better if someone else in each country was the initial poster of it. So if we had someone in the US that put their post up on their page, this is why the advertising becomes problematic, because the advertising means that the funding for the thing would be in it's sort of global, and it needs to be in each country. So that's my thinking at the moment. We need someone in each country with a Facebook page that will share the site or share the post in their own language. And I'm available for 30 days to do the Photoshop work unless someone else is an expert on it. I've never used it. I've got 30 days free usage of Photoshop. It's not hugely costly to buy it. I might consider doing so. So that's where it's up to. The pictures are there. It's been shared on the internet chain letters that we've got, as is the text that needs to be translated in each language. So it's ready to go. I'm pretty determined to get it out. We've got an election coming in 60 days. I can't wait any longer. We need to move in New Zealand. The US has got it in November. So at least the US and the New Zealand one can come out at $370. I'll change it to reflect that. I'll put it on my universal entitlement page, share it, pass the link over to the email group. They can share it in the US. If you want it in your country, take a look at it. I've done 30 countries numbers. 90% plus are better off in 30 countries that I've looked at. The best tax models I've seen is 75. All the information's available. If you follow the links, you'll find the research that I've done and the presentations that I've made. So there it is. I'm sorry I can't share the pictures again, but it is all being shared on the internet group that we have. So look at the pictures, take a look at what you want. If you want it to happen in your country, send me the text in your own language. I can save that or send it to you, whoever sends me the translation, and you can share it in a Facebook in your country. And that to me is my preference. Otherwise, I'm going to have every version on my universal entitlement page, and it's just going to look a little bit messy. So my preference is for someone to stand up and say, here's the translation. I'm willing to share it on my Facebook page or a basic income page in my country. I'll send you the altered pictures, and you can share it in your own country.
Maybe it's can I say something?
Sure.
Maybe it's a good idea to just send an email with the English text only, so that we can easily translate it for you. We don't have to send the pictures, only the text.
The last email with just the text is, I've already done it. I
Oh,
shared
sorry,
it,
I didn't see that.
About 3 days ago, I sent that out with all the text. Room to put your translation under each section of the text, so I don't get it in the wrong boxes.
Peter, can I ask a question? Peter, my understanding is there are 4 slides, right?
Yep.
And 4 of them are all finalized.
Yes.
Okay. Can you send these 4 slides plus 4 slides without text, I mean, without anything, to the email group together with the text to be translated, so that even people can make themselves, I mean, they can make translation and put into the slide directly without taking your time?
Yeah, if they've all got Photoshop, they can do that. I'll have to see if I can delete the text completely out of the pictures, but I have sent the pictures with the English text, and I have sent the text alone with room for the translation under each text, and that's all on the shared email site.
Okay.
So I'll look at that, Ali. That could be done.
At least you can send the 4 final versions, because I checked in the meantime, there are some intermediate versions in the emails. So, okay, can you say that this is the final 4 slides regarding this issue in English?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's the last version I sent was the final version, so it should be all there. And the text is written in English, so translation is what I need.
Okay. Peter, I propose to renew your contribution in the next one together with the slides. Is it possible?
If I can get the screen share to work, mate, honestly, it's never been like this before.
Please
So no idea
send the
what's
slides to me. I will make the screen share while you are making your speech.
Okay.
Okay. Dear friends, any other contributions or any other things you would like to share? I guess none at this stage. So I'm unmuting all. So today's labor is, we can say, finished.